The NFL Scouting and Combine is complete. And if you checked out all our coverage, we covered all 4 days after they happened, kind of talk big picture stuff, who impressed, who didn't. And we're going to kind of wrap everything up today with a bow. And we're going to talk a little bit more big picture. And we're going to talk about free agency. We're going to talk about the rumors surrounding the Minnesota Vikings. And we're going to do all of that here before a big Wednesday free agency preview here on the Real Forno Show.
Welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by Tyler Forness, the managing editor of USA Today's Vikings Wire, writer for the College Football Network, publisher of Substack Run In Shooter, host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, as well as a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Real Forno Show. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, is producer Dave up in the top right corner. Dave, we have quite a bit to get to. We're going to kind of put a bow on the NFL Scouting Combine and wrap things up. And if you want extra details on each of the days, highly recommend you check out all of our videos from that, including the one where I had to bail 3-4 minutes into the show to take care of Odie, and I reappeared in a different room of my house. So you won't want to miss those. And they're going to have a much detailed version of what's going on as my nose itches like crazy. But we're going to kind of put a big bow on top of the NFL Scouting Combine. And then we're going to roll that into some rumors going on about the Minnesota Vikings. And I'll be 100% honest. There's a chance this could be a shorter show because we're just going to kind of wrap things up and get ourselves prepared. And then Wednesday, we're going to have a big free agency preview coming where I'm going to break down all the free agents the Minnesota Vikings should be targeting. And that doesn't mean they have to target all of them, but they should at least inquire about all of them. Because like they shouldn't give $40 million to defensive tackles, but they should probably inquire about all of them to see if they can get one. So that's kind of going to be the thought process there. And Dave, it's been a hell of a week, and we are
You ain't kidding.
We are 1 week away from the beginning of free agency, and it is very, very exciting.
Anthony, no, there was no memo that both of us wear purple, and no, it's not exact. I'm wearing a t-shirt. He's wearing a Unreal product. I believe.
It's not an Unreal. It's just Nike. It was that like little like light hoodie that Kevin O'Connell wore in every game last year.
Yeah.
This thing rocks. I love this thing. So
I'm glad I'm not the only one that noticed that. But anyways, want to welcome everybody that's already at the show. We got Chi-Town Vikes, we got Anthony, we got Chris, Mr. Bob Swede, the Doc's in the house, and of course, Norspheus is here as well. Giatano Amato is here. Who's That Dude is also dropped by, as well as Gary Olson. Welcome you all.
I want to talk to Norspheus for a second because I saw on our first Combine show that he saw Kevin was on. He's like, bye. Don't worry. I talked to Mr. Laughy Boy. He's not going to be doing that laugh anymore. When he comes on, it's just going to be real content. So you don't have to worry about it. I wanted to point that out since I know you're in the chat today. Welcome, everybody. We're going to have some fun. And we are going to talk about some rumors. And I'm pulling up everything right now just to kind of have those conversations. There is a lot.
What is that?
There's a lot to talk about, but let's kind of put a ball on the Combine. If you didn't follow along over the course of the last week where we've been doing a lot of Combine discussion, one, welcome to the show. Two, all that stuff you can go back and listen to. It's technically outdated, but you're going to get some information, kind of just a generalized wrap up of each day. And that's what we tried to kind of deliver, something that's easily digestible, and it doesn't go into all the nuts and bolts, all the prospects, but it highlights the ones that needed to be highlighted. So let's kind of put a bow on the entire thing. All right. I do want to mention, Dave, there's an offensive lineman from Houston. His name is Patrick Paul. He's a guard and tackle prospect. He's like 6'7", 325, something just crazy like that. And he's got 36.25-inch arms. Just pterodactyl wings. That dude this morning put up 30 reps on the bench press, and he was like 4th or 5th among offensive linemen. I don't know if you guys understand like the general physics of bench press. If you have shorter arms, it is significantly easier to put up bench press weight because it's a lot less distance for that thing to move. And at 225 pounds, to put up 30 reps with 36-inch arms is absurd and a lot of strength. He needs a lot of technique work, but oh my goodness, is the toolbox fascinating. And I'm really, really excited to kind of see how that all resonates and how that all works for him in the National Football League. And that was the last drill of the 2024 NFL Scouting Combine. They do the bench press and then they go home. And the bench press, you can really argue that it doesn't matter, but it also does. It's probably the weirdest drill they do at the combine because bench press really doesn't matter for strength per se because it's just pushing this way. Well, offensive linemen do a lot of that. So it actually kind of resonates a little bit, but there's so many different variables and it's kind of fun to kind of see how everybody does because I think a lot of scouts will still use that as, hey, you have to do it. How much effort are you putting in there to try and be good at it?
Mm-hmm. And like you said, it's not a strength thing. They're not doing max weight to see how much you can bench. They're doing reps. And it was how long can you last pushing significant weight? And 225 is a significant weight if you're trying to do a series of reps on it. And to do that much with that long arms, that is something. That is something. It matters.
It absolutely is something. Yeah, it does matter. But outside of that, there are a lot of rumors that are coming out of the combine. I think that's the most important thing here when we're having the conversation about the combine. Yeah, we had Xavier Worthy run a record 4.21 second 40-yard dash. Really, really impressive. But they're like those individual performances, we'll kind of be talking more and more about them long term. But I think what's really important here, Dave, is we need to talk about some of the rumors and stuff that are coming out. And Kevin O'Connell alluded to tampering with Kirk Cousins when he was on NFL Network's broadcast. Look, they're not going to file a report of their tampering. You know why? The Vikings do it too. And just because you're a hypocrite doesn't mean you're wrong. And you can be as annoyed as you want that other people are tampering with Kirk Cousins. And if it's happening at the combine, nobody's going to say a damn word. Why? Because it's happening at the combine and literally everybody does it. Everybody. Nick's asking, what's the wildest rumor I heard? I'm going to be real. Some of the stuff like that I've heard, I'm not allowed to share. And I do that out of respect. Because if you share something that somebody tells you in confidence and then it gets out and it comes back to you, nobody's going to tell you anything anymore. Right. So I've heard some pretty interesting stuff. And I'll kind of give little tidbits here and there, but there's some. I'm going to be respectful to the people that tell me stuff too.
Mm-hmm. You talked about where they're doing a 4.21. Yeah, the PFF. He's not the fastest wide receiver in the draft class.
Who's faster?
It was Malik Neighbors, I think, because they get the.
Hold on. Here's the thing with GPS data. It's also flawed. And one of the reasons why with GPS data, like it's flawed in the sense that you may hit a max speed, but how long are you hitting that max speed? How often are you getting to that max speed? And do you have to hit that max speed? Are you given opportunities to hit a max speed of like, let's say 23 miles an hour? Like there's so many contextualized pieces there. Where I don't think if you watch game film, I don't think Malik Neighbors is faster than Xavier Worthy.
And I think it was Malik Neighbors. It was one of the wide receivers that did not participate in the.
It would have been Malik Neighbors then. I think he may run in the 4.3s, but I don't think he's breaking 4.3.
No, they said field, because on the field they clocked him at more than 24.41 miles an hour. And that was the speed that Worthy hit. And I saw an article, I didn't get to read it, but the headlines is the combine becoming obsolete because of it? I'm assuming it's because of some of the trackers and stuff that we now can see. Now, does that I still think there's need for the combine because it measures stuff that you don't see on a GPS tracker. An offensive lineman going against Tavondre Sweat, you're not going to be able to measure how much force he's got on him because those sensors aren't applied to the players. It just doesn't exist. But if you could see, like the tackle you were talking about, throw up 30 reps with 36-inch arms, that's something.
And I hate to give him any credit, but the tallest man on Vikings Twitter, Arif Hassan, did write that article, Does the Combine Still Matter? And I think he makes a really compelling argument. I think it does matter, but it's not for the reasons why you might think. I think it matters for the congregation. It matters for the medicals because each team gets a hand in basically with each player. And I think that matters. I think it matters to have that kind of centralized spot to do all these things. Now, it sucks for the players, but at the end of the day, this is basically a big job interview, and it's just one of the steps. But I think in terms of combine testing, in terms of getting all those numbers in that centralized spot, I think it's nice because then everybody knows it's accurate. Because if you don't know, pro day numbers often are a little generous unless they're complete laser timed. If they're laser timed like the NFL draft is, so the time unofficial time, they have a stopwatch guy, and scouts are good with the stopwatch. But at the end of the day, it's still an unofficial time because it's a stopwatch. And that matters. And a lot of these pro days don't do laser times. It's just stopwatch. So if there are 5 guys stopwatching a guy's 40 and they are like, oh, one guy's got 4.31, one guy's got 4.32, one guy's got 4.32, and then another guy's got 4.34, they're probably going to settle and just average it out. Yeah, you ran a 4.32. But there's no actual number. There's no actual official score because there's nothing to truly give an entirely accurate score versus human error.
Right.
And that's not to say the human error element can't actually give you the accurate score. You just don't know because of human error.
Chris says it's a reliable measure versus what you're getting in, say, the pro days.
And Chris would know. Chris deals with a lot of data in his daily life. So having that kind of reliable data to access and be able to utilize gives you a much more confident outcome in whatever you believe the result is going to be. So that all matters. And I hope the combine sticks around. There's rumors that Minnesota could potentially get the combine with, I think they would use Hennepin County Medical Center, which is literally like a mile down the street for these guys. It is a level 1 trauma center, so maybe they wouldn't. Like, I'm not going to say yes or no, maybe so or whatever, but there are hospitals really close by. Abbott's not too far away, and having that kind of centralized location is really important for all the logistics that we don't think about for the NFL Scouting Combine. Plus, I love it because I could go every single day and just drive home. Sounds pretty damn great to me, Dave.
I agree.
But yeah.
And if there are cities competing, they have to have that medical infrastructure available to compete. And Minneapolis is, known for it. You got the Mayo Clinic for one. So it's makes sense to me. And it'd be a nice place to hold it, I would think. Now, of course, if they do, that's the year Minneapolis gets the spring blizzard and they get 3 feet of snow.
Yeah, but you know what? All those media people that whined about the Super Bowl. It's not like Indianapolis is warm.
Right.
It's just it's comfortable. It's known. You go to St. Elmo's, you get some shrimp cocktail and a ribeye. But like Minneapolis just be great. I'd love it. It would be so much fun. Plus, all my buddies who would fly in and be like, hey, you got a free place to stay. Just hey, why don't you, bring me a bottle of bourbon. Bring me a bottle of Eagle Rare.
It's
and then
the area, Chris.
Yeah. Oh, well, Rochester is like an hour and a half away from Minneapolis.
Yeah, that's still, that's drivable if they need some sort of specialized test. They can stick them in a, limo and get them there.
But they won't. They do those combine medical rechecks. Mm-hmm. So in like 3 weeks, they'll bring some guys back to do those more in-depth tests. But these guys have such a loaded schedule with interviews, this, that, and the other thing, that, hey, that all matters. But that's kind of it on the combine. If you guys have any questions on the combine, throw them in the comments. We'll try and get to them. But I want to talk about some of these Vikings rumors. And before we do that, I want to mention our friends at Underdog Rescue Minnesota. Now, if you've been following along with us, everybody knows that Odie got hurt the other day. Odie seems to be really good today. Hasn't had any issues, so he's doing good, which is awesome because hopefully this week we're going to get him a new Underdog buddy named Chet. I think we're going to name him Cheddar because he kind of goes by that. This is a lab pity mix, but we believe he's got some greyhound in him based on his body type, and we're really excited. He and Odie met the other day. He's very tall and slender, so that's why we kind of think greyhound, but he's a good boy. And we're really excited, and we're getting him from Underdog Rescue. We don't just have them sponsor us; we live it. UnderdogRescueMN.com if you want to foster, adopt, or just help out in the memory of Eclair. They do great things, and they help dogs, and they rescue them from all across the United States. UnderdogRescueMN.com. All right, Dave. Let's talk some rumors. What do you want to talk about first? Should we talk Kirk? Should we talk Jefferson? Should we talk Danielle? Where do you want to go?
Let's start with Danielle.
All right. So, Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano. So, if you don't know Jeremy Fowler, he used to work for the Pioneer Press, and now he's a big boy working for ESPN. I believe he covered the Vikings for a little bit for ESPN. Then he covered the Steelers for a long time, and now he's a national guy. It's one of the few guys as tall as me. I don't like when people are as tall as me.
Yeah, and most writers
they're short.
Not quite a Reef's height, but close.
Hey, Reef's 8 feet tall, man. I don't know if you've had a chance to meet him. He's huge. But yeah, so they released a long piece kind of discussing different things. They usually release this on Saturdays. This week they released it on Sunday because at the end of the combine. They have made an effort to re-sign Danielle Hunter, but they aren't sure how much that might be for. They believe it's going to be north of $20 million a year, way north, because of Hunter's previous contracts. Now, it's really, really hard to fault the Minnesota Vikings for those contracts. Because one of them was a rookie deal and the other one Hunter's agent agreed to. And guess who's Hunter's agent still? The same guy who agreed to a bad contract. It was a bad contract when he signed it. It was a bad contract when it ends next week. It was always a bad contract, but he signed it. And now he's almost in chase mode, trying to make up for lost money.
Now, they did get some extra money last year added to it.
Yep, they did. They got a significant amount of money added to the contract last year. It was essentially, he made around $15 million more than what the contract initially stated by the end of it. So good for Danielle. Like, they were able to kind of rectify to make it work, but still he was only making around $16.5, $17 million a year when literally a couple weeks after he signed that deal, Khalil Mack signed the one for $23.2 million a year. And Hunter signed one for $14.2. $9 million. Ooh. You want some kind of breaking news, Dave?
Sure.
So this just got posted by Pro Football Talk. Headline: we're picking up very credible indications that Kirk Cousins is planning a potential move of his family from Minnesota to Atlanta. This was just posted by Mike Flory, and I'll read it verbatim, and we can kind of react to it because there isn't a whole lot more to the Hunter stuff. He's just going to go chase the bag, and he has earned it. All right. So the Mike Flory article. Vikings fans would love to forget the 1998 AFC Championship game. Might have another reason to think about it. The team that beat the Vikings that day in January 1999 could be poised to pilfer quarterback Kirk Cousins. We can't get into the specifics for now, but we're getting very credible indications that Kirk Cousins is seriously considering moving his family to Atlanta, which would mean, obviously, that he'd be signing with the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons have always been the top alternative to the Vikings for Cousins, who becomes an unrestricted free agent next Wednesday, and for good reason. His wife, Julie, grew up in nearby Alpharetta, Georgia, and her parents still live there. The Vikings have, by all appearances, decided they want to keep Cousins, but only at their price, and we were going to get into that little piece in a little bit. They seem to think that he won't get a better offer elsewhere. If he does, they seem content to let him go. Kevin O'Connell told PFT Live that he absolutely unequivocally wants Cousins back, and Florio says that he believes him. Do others in the organization, from Quasito Fomensa to Mark and Ziggy, will feel the same way? The counter would be presumably that Cousins is 35 years old and he's recovering from a torn Achilles tendon. Also, in 6 years with the Vikings, the team's only made the playoffs twice and likely would have made it last year if it weren't for injury. The attraction for Cousins beyond the contract would be a plethora of great skill position players, and the fact that the NFC South is currently weaker than the NFC North. The Vikings still have 6 days of exclusive negotiating rights with Cousins. If they want to keep him, they could make an offer he won't refuse, but it might be too late for that. The Falcons made enough of an indication last week to Cousins' agent Mike McCartney as to what they're willing to do. Cousins may have already decided to go, and he might not be interested in the Vikings doing so now when they could have got that done before the Falcons presumably got his attention. They've been linked to Justin Fields, but I will say I've heard a lot of things on Justin Fields, and I think I am led to believe that the Bears are waiting because the Falcons want to wait to see what happens with the free agent market before they trade for Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm. It very well could be. And I saw something earlier today that I'm trying to remember what they said it was. It was a 3-year deal, like $145 million. Something like that.
For Cousins?
Yeah, and with like the first 2 guaranteed.
Who was that actually reported?
I saw it somewhere. I should have sent you the link.
Yeah. That would be very fascinating.
But that's what they were hearing. And by all means, let him go. Let him go, let him go, let him go. As I told folks over on the Gallahorn group, hey, goodbye. I won't sing anymore.
Yeah.
Hey,
listen, the big thing with Kirk Cousins, it shouldn't be a surprise if they let him walk. And I think that piece was very interesting. And there was some real discussion on whether Kirk would want to move his family out. I believe, I think his youngest son is in kindergarten now, because his oldest was 2 or 3 when they moved here initially in 2018. But now, I could see them wanting to go to Georgia because his wife is from there. They've made a home here. They've made real friends here. But it's also they made it their home. It's not home. So there could be that element in play. We don't know, and we won't get into what Julie would want if she would want to move home. But let me tell you, if your significant other wants to move home, you're probably doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of how things work in a marriage. So
happy wife, happy life.
That's why I sent my wife to Mexico. I'm kidding. She had a great time and she came back very happy, and I'm very glad for that. But
good.
Look, that's the thing with Cousins. And let's kind of talk about what Graziano and Jeremy Fowler had to say. They said this came from Graziano. If he hits the free agent market, should that happen, I expect the Falcons to make a strong pursuit. Told by multiple sources this week that signing Cousins is the top QB solution, not trading for Justin Fields. It's a nuanced discussion with Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. Cousins spent 6 years with the club, but there's also the issue with the contract. The Vikings do not want to guarantee him any money past 2024. They're willing to fully guarantee 2024, which is pretty normal for a 1-year deal. A lot of guys get fully guaranteed 1-year deals, maybe even a fully guaranteed 2-year deal. When Cousins got the fully guaranteed 3-year deal, that was kind of unprecedented. And when a lot of quarterback contracts, you get 5 or 6-year deals, most of the first 3 years would be fully guaranteed. But you'd have years 4, 5, and 6. The Vikings didn't. It was just 3 years. And like, good for Kirk. He was able to make that work. He was able to take advantage of a really advantageous time on the market and make it happen. But now things are a little bit different. And the Vikings don't seem to be interested in extending him on a long-term basis, which we can have the discussion all day. Is Cousins good enough for it? Is he not good enough for it? The bottom line is this. The Vikings don't want to do it because of his age, and they want flexibility long-term. If you have a guy like, let's say, a Josh Allen, he signed that 6-year, $243 million deal, right? Well, within that, you have flexibility. You can move money around. You can't do it if you keep doing these short-term, fully guaranteed extensions. That's not how that works. So it's a lot easier, even if you're paying a quarterback this big money over a long period of time, because you can maneuver. And eventually you're going to have to pay the piper. But that piper is going to have a lot more room to be able to absorb that kind of hit down the line, which is why you see stuff like void years and you see signing bonuses getting bigger and being pushed further out, because all of a sudden you get a $30 million increase in the salary cap. That happens. So that these teams plan for that stuff. And when you have a guy like Cousins, it's very tough to be able to do that because of how these contracts are continuously structured, this, that, and the other thing. On a talent level, on a human level, bringing back makes all the sense in the world. For a future standpoint, I'm out. And that's kind of been my stance for the majority of the time. I just think it's time to move on, and it has nothing to do with Kirk the person. It just has to do with the situation. Because as Brian mentions, $81 million for Russell Wilson to not play in Denver. What's hilarious, they signed with that extension. Dave, that extension would have kicked in this year. That extension hasn't kicked in yet. How crazy is that?
It is what it is. Now, he'll be a post-June 1st designation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're going to have to make him a post-June 1st because
and
they're not going to be able to absorb $81 million this year. No. But they have to absorb it until June 1st. That's the kicker.
It's
so
just crazy.
My guess is they'll have the cap savings, and then what they'll do is that maybe they'll do an extension or two, but they may just keep a bunch of that and then use it for next year's cap. Mm-hmm. Like every year, a team needs around $10 million in cap space for incidentals for your practice squad, because your practice squad counts against the salary cap.
Right. That's why you have effective cap space on OTC.
Yep. And not only that, you have to account for bonuses. You have to account for like in-game roster bonuses. So like, remember Zadarius Smith, how they had to keep worrying about his contract? Well, he had so much in these per game roster bonuses. Once he hit it, he earned that bonus, and that hit the salary cap. It was like $300,000 a game, which, you know what? It makes sense to put it in his contract like that, but then you have to plan for it. And then it becomes a more convoluted situation. So I'm going to be fascinated to see what Denver does, but that's just kind of where we're at. We just don't know 100% how things are going to manifest there. But Kirk Cousins likely gone. I thought he wasn't going to be returning. And I'll say this, Mike Florio doesn't necessarily present the best persona, the best parts of himself online. He's very snarky. He kind of comes off like a jerk, but he is a good guy, and he knows people. He has sources, and I wouldn't just automatically kick it aside. I think that there's some real steam there.
Mm-hmm. Very well could be. Very well could be.
But now, Dave, the real question is this. If Kirk goes, who comes in? Who's going to be that bridge guy? Bridge guy?
I don't know.
I would just have Mullins do it. Mullins has been in the offense for 2 years. He's capable. He's not great. He's fine. And then you have a rookie, and you're in a good place. That's what I do.
And Mullins knows the offense, and KOC can say, "Hey, learn the offense from him, and don't throw interceptions like he does."
Yeah,
that's the only difference. If Mullins didn't throw interceptions, Mullins would be starting. It's produced over 400 yards a game. He'd be starting, but his propensity to let the ball go into the opponent's hands is what kills him. But who knows? They could bring in somebody else. From the Minshew types to whoever else is available, they might go after. It's going to be interesting to see.
That's going to be very interesting to see, and I can't wait to see how it all plays out. And
yes, George, we will wait until it is official.
Yeah, when it becomes official, you can guarantee that we are going to be on here live, ready to rock and roll. Look, this guys, we're only a week away from having an answer. We have so desperately needed an answer of what's going to happen in the future of the Minnesota Vikings at quarterback. And let me tell you, whether you like Cousins, whether you hate Cousins, whatever direction you want to go, not having an answer is just making things worse. And I cannot wait to have an answer. I need it. I crave it. It's going to be awesome. But that's the big thing on Kirk. It's kind of like a standoff. Kirk wants X. The Vikings are offering Y. I don't think there's a Z. I think somebody's going to have to accept X or Y in order for Kirk to stay here next season. Will that happen? Probably not.
Now, I'm going to get back to Danielle. Yes, you were talking about Danielle's probably going to get over $20 million and bank. The question is where? Today, it came out that Wilkins, the edge down in Miami, is not being tagged. So he hits free agency.
Yep.
Do you think if Danielle goes off and plays for Team X, that the Vikings are going to push hard for Wilkins?
I think they might push
hard for Wilkins no matter what.
They might push hard for Wilkins no matter what. I don't know what Brian Flores thinks of him, but he was Brian Flores' first draft pick in Miami. And if that tells you anything, well, there you go. So we'll kind of find out in time. And we're going to have a big free agency preview on this on Wednesday, kind of talking about all these different situations. I don't know how the Vikings are going to rebuild. One sec.
Should I tell Vikes one of the more Hunter conversation? That's why I just let it with the Wilkins, because they sort of tie together. And it's going to be interesting to see how much money the Vikings want to spend on that position. What I like about Wilkins is he's younger. He's, one cycle behind. And but they could pay for both. There's room. The Vikings have over $33 million in effective cap space, and that's without adjusting contracts. So they could easily get more money than that. It's a possibility. It's just, are they going to do it? And all the other teams, the 31 other teams, are playing in this too. They all want both those players, both Wilkins and Danielle. So it's going to be interesting how everything unfolds.
It's going to be very interesting to see how everyone unfolds. I'm trying to pull up see if anything from anyone else that discussions about Hunter, but I haven't really seen anything.
I haven't seen anything team specific other than Detroit and Chicago. On the wagering stuff. And I know, talking to their Fans First Sports counterparts, Bleachers to Speakers for Detroit and the Bear Claw podcast for Chicago, they both would love to have Danielle Hunter. That is one of the things that both those teams need is some decent edge rushers. And they'd be tickled pink. And I know the Packers have said it too. So, but the Packers have more spending problems.
Yeah, they do. They have a lot of spending problems, but those are going to get cleared up. And then they're going to give Jordan Love $50 million, which I will ha 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 ha. But yeah, guys, this is going to be an interesting week.
Speaking of which, there's Foster. Yes, we would. Foster joins us. Foster is one of the dynamic duo on Bleachers to Speakers. And you'll catch our show later in the week. We usually record on Wednesdays, sometimes Thursdays. We're trying to go live across the 3 channels. We'll see.
There we go. I'll answer a couple questions and we're going to get out of here. And I'm just going to let you know, anytime like a rumor or something breaks this week or somebody talks about something, I'm going to put up a little short so you guys have the opportunity to kind of see what's going on in a really quick fashion. Delton asked who took the biggest jump at the combine for me. It's really tough to take a jump at the combine because the film is what matters. Yes, the testing complements the film, but the film is what really matters. One guy who opened my eyes was Isaac Guerrero, 6th-year senior out of Louisville, only has 273 career touches. Why? A redshirt year in 2018, injuries in 19, 20, and 21, and he was buried behind the likes of Jonathan Taylor, Braylon Allen, and Jawar Jordan. I don't think Guerrero ever started a football game. That's not because of the talent. The guy against Virginia Tech had 3 touchdowns on like 10 carries. And we're not talking like all of them being like 1-yard touchdowns. He had like 50-yard touchdowns. And he's a track guy. He ran a 4.33, jumped out of the gym, a really good 10-yard split. I think it was 1.51. And it was awesome. It was great. But we'll kind of figure out what he is. I did write him up. And he's a good player. I think he's like a late day 2, early day 3 guy, but we'll figure it out. We will figure it out. Oh, thank you, Chi-Town. I appreciate that. The shorts are just meant to be quick and informational. All right. I don't know. Did you see any other questions here, Dave?
What about movement on Garrett Bradbury? Joe Parker's asking. We need a quality center. Who's out there?
I'm gonna be real. I think Garrett Bradbury's staying. I think he's fine. He's not great. I think he's fine. And here's the problem: if you pay a center $15 million, you'll fix the issue. But that's an extra $10 million in cap space. Whereas Bradbury does a capable job most of the time and is fine at his job. And people like to blame the offensive line for the running game. I don't think people realize how bad the running backs were last year as seeing the opportunities and being able to hit the hole.
Right. And it depends. Lineman grades depend on 1, the quarterback, how he evades stuff, 2, how running's called, how they block, the scheme, stuff like that. It all ties in. Bradbury's, to me, is meh. He's small. You notice this last week, most of the linemen that came out were over 300 pounds. And that's unusual because we're getting back to the bigger guys, right? We had gone for so long with the small, fast guys, and that's because offenses are sort of changing again. It's football is cyclic. You know, the big deal was, hey, let's go zone run. Zone. And that was done, by Kubiak. He'd made that famous. And then now we're getting more to the gaps, power style blocking that demands bigger guys. And on the defensive side, they've gotten smaller and faster, right? And what's the way to beat smaller and faster? Big and strong. So it ebbs and flows which ways. Would I like to see a new center? Yes. Do I think there's one available in free agency that I'd, give my left testicle for? No. Now, would I like to draft one? Sure. At least it's developmental guys. And like I said, it takes linemen 3 years to develop. So there's no big rush. Now, for left guard, that's something we'll probably get into Wednesday when we discuss free agents, because there's a hole there that needs to be filled. Mm-hmm. Whether we bring back Reisner or not, he's a free agent. So that's a hole that must be filled. Because I don't think we don't have the depth or any of those guys to move up and be adequate. You might make an argument, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. And I'm kind of looking at things like sometimes you just have to deal with guys being okay in spots. It's the salary cap era. Like, we'd love to have studs everywhere, but you're just not gonna. And with the Vikings offense where it is now, a really good running back is going to do a lot for you, for your running game. And it's the same reason why, like, a quarterback, like, the receivers can get open, but if the quarterback doesn't see it, what does it matter?
Right.
Or it's the same thing with a running back
in a pocket. What's it matter?
Yeah, there's so many different elements to that conversation, and I think a really good running back can make a big, big, big difference. But we'll kind of find out, and we'll update you guys as things evolve, as things happen. We'll have a huge free agency preview for you guys on Wednesday, and hopefully we'll have a SKOL search for you on both Tuesday and Thursday at some time. And that Thursday SKOL search, it may get pushed back to Friday, but we will hopefully have 2 of them for you ready to rock and roll. Thank you guys very much for joining us here tonight.
One more question. Emmer says, what was the fastest combine of all time? Like, across the board. He felt he saw the low 4.4s and 4.3s. It was Worthy this last week at 4.21. Wide receiver, Texas.
I think so.
No, that was. They said it's the new combine record.
No. I'm talking the overall question. The fastest combine of all time. Look, athletes are getting faster and faster overall, and guys are coming in lighter and lighter. It wouldn't shock me if this was the fastest combine of all time. I don't have that piece of information, but
they were promoting it as the fastest ever. 4.22 was the previous.
Well, Dave, I'm not talking one time. I'm talking overall scale. That's what the question is.
The majority of the players.
That's what our Emmer's question is what, like, in that aspect. I'll be honest, I thought it was, because I even commented, I'm like, I thought the corners ran really fast. You were seeing a lot of 4.4s and not a lot of 4.5s. I'm like, wow. I'm like, this corner group is really fast, and I also think the corner group's really good too. So I think you're onto something. I don't think it's necessarily, hey, like, perfect per se. Like, but yeah, I would agree.
Well, and talked about the big round bellies. They seem slower this year. A lot of 4.5s. And they go, yeah, but if you go for size adjusted, those guys are bigger. And
the big round bellies running 4.5s. That's really fast.
Fives.
Okay.
There was a few of them that were under 5. There was, but they go, when you go size adjusted, these guys are 85, 90% of what they're doing. But it's, if you're 6'7", weigh 340 pounds, and you run a 5.1, you're flying.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Guys, that's our show. We'll be back Wednesday night with a huge free agency preview you won't want to miss. And we'll have some SKOL searches this week as well. With that, I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings, everybody.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone.